Yeah, baby.
I'll tell her. See you later.
He's a very nice looking man.
You'll be seeing him in Rio.
Recently, my wife and I went to the Museum of the Moving Image. Specifically, we wanted to see the Hall of Film Technology, which basically was film equipment, shooting, and post-production from the silent days all the way up to today. In terms of silent films, people have asked me, when you watch a silent film, why is it that the speed is so erratic? People are running fast, movement is very fast, and that is because of basically two reasons. There wasn't one specific frame rate that the footage was shot at, as it would later on be 24 frames per second. That was one thing. Also, in the early days of silent films, there was no motor in the camera, so it had to be hand cranked. Therefore, there wasn't one specific film speed, and when it was projected, you had fast movement. Sound films came in 1926.
Speed. Action.
But the first major sound film was The Jazz Singer with Al Jolson. Most of the film was silent, but when it came to him singing his songs, it was sound.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Toot toot tootsie, goodbye. Toot toot tootsie, don't cry. The little choo-choo train that takes me away from you. You don't know just how sad it makes me.
Sound was shot on optical film, not magnetic film. That wouldn't happen until, I believe, the early 50s. And when the films were projected, the audio was not on the film. It was a double system. The film was projected, and it was hooked up to a special record player, and the audio was on the record. So films like the original Frankenstein and Dracula, when they were projected, they had records. In 1931, that changed. The optical sound was now put on the film. One of the main film cameras to be used throughout the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and even into the 60s was the Mitchell camera. Color films were shot on the 3-strip Technicolor Mitchell camera, which basically had 3 strips of black and white film, and they went through a prism, blue, green, and red. And if sound was being used, the camera had to have a special housing, which was called a blimp. It made the camera unbelievably cumbersome, but the color that came from these films, The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, was something that you don't even see today. When magnetic sound came out, it was recorded on a reel-to-reel tape recorder, but a special one called a Nagra tape recorder. The audio was then transferred to 16 millimeter or 35 millimeter magnetic full coat. At the museum, we saw the Nagra, and it was funny to see a piece of equipment that we used back in the day, and to see it in the museum sort of made me feel kind of old. This was then sunk up with the film.
The editor makes a mark on the picture.
Note 1.
Then the sound is marked, where the board bangs the bottom, and the two are matched.
Scene 3, take 1.
For editing, there was the Moviola, which basically you put the film on and it ran, and you could use a grease pencil to mark it and to make your edit notes. The Moviola would have 2 heads, one for picture, one for audio. Working on these was very cumbersome. You'd have to hunch over the machine. Later on, you had what was called the flatbed editing machines. Moviola made one. There was Chem, and there was the Steenbeck. When digital came, this changed everything, because you now had tracks, multiple tracks, so you could hear all your audio at one time. Back in the day of film editing, you could not really hear all your editing at the same time until you got to the audio mix. At the audio mix, you would have what were called dubbers. All your tracks from your film would go on the dubbers, and the sound mixer would mix the film. We separated the audio. We might have a few tracks of dialogue from different people because the sound difference had to be adjusted. Also, these dubbers could not start and stop on a dime. So you always had to make sure that your different dialogue and sound effects had enough room before and after so that the mixer could do his work. Today it's different because when you're mixing on the computer, everything goes like that. Today, this is the editing system of the 21st century. Today, we don't have to worry about stopping on a dime, but I still like to separate my audio. If I have, let's say, 3 people talking at once on the screen, I will separate their audio because it makes it easier for me. I'm usually doing the mixing. Same with sound effects. When you are editing film and you're splicing and you decide that you have to put something back in or you want to make it longer, it takes a while to take your razor blade and open up the splice. But this was the time for decision making. One of the problems with editing digital today is that everything is so fast and that decision making is not forced upon you from the times when you had to open up splices. That's why so many people did not want to sit with you when you were editing film. They'd give you notes and then they would come back. Today, people sit in the room and you're the maestro. You're conducting everything. I never really liked that. But making films is a passion of mine, and I'm going to keep doing it for as long as I can. And who knows, maybe one day I myself may wind up in the Museum of the Moving Images Hall of Technology.